Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in the sign of Aquarius. And I wanted to make this video well in advance because this is a very dramatic full moon. And I just wanted you to prepare for it. But I have a couple of requests from you. One of them is that this is going to be not for the faint-hearted. This is a very challenging full moon. It has got three T squares going on. They are super tight as well. So I am not able to be very positive with this full moon. Mainly, I'm going to talk about negatives. And I know some of you are extremely sensitive. So then I request you, to walk away from this video. Secondly, there are going to be some political comments made in this video as well, which I know is, really much of a disturbing topic for many. So, but please refrain yourself from any political debates. This channel is purely astrological. I am not really into politics. I don't follow politics much. I'm not really even, not just because of it's not just US related, and I know it's a big topic nowadays, but I don't even follow the politics in my own country. But obviously, it's inevitable not to talk about it from an astrological point of view because many of you are interested in these type of things, how the politics and astrology can be brought together. Shall we bring them together? I mean, we are in the middle of the Saturn Jupiter cycle. So it's inevitable. We cannot just not talk about it because Saturn Jupiter cycles are really about political matters. So you will hear on loads of astrology channel, I guess, a political, you know, comments. Yeah, so that's my request. I still have got the promotion running for another 4 or 5 days. So you can have discounted reading with me and you can actually study on a discounted price with me as well. So you might want to go on my website and check it out. September is almost fully booked as well. So I've got, I think, maximum about 5 spots left in September. So you might want to be considering signing up as quickly as you can if you want to be having a reading with me in September. October is pretty flexible at the moment, so go ahead and check it out. I'm going to be having some very interesting webinars coming up as well this month. So this weekend, I'm going to teach about the asteroid signatures of healers, what indicates healers in the chart, especially from an asteroid point of view. And also, I'm going to be teaching you about the evaluation of a relationship capacity, but from a traditional point of view. So if any of these are in interest to you, then check it out. And as usual, I will be breaking this down for the 12 signs as well. But I will do that for my YouTube members. So if you are interested in that, please go ahead and sign up for it. By the way, this is going to be a longer video. I mean, we have got so many activations that I will not be able to wrap this up in half an hour. So I think we're going to be sitting together for an hour, and I think you should be sitting till the very end because this will be packed with loads of information. So actually, let's crack on it. Full moon in Aquarius, 27 degree of Aquarius. It's happening on the 19th of August in all major time zones. And one of the reasons why this full moon is very potent or very interesting, because we've got three T squares going on. And on top of that, also very interesting that all modalities are appearing in these T-squares as well. So we've got the cardinal T-square, we've got the fixed T-square, we've got the mutable T-square as well. But the full moon is going to be part of the fixed T-square. So we've got loads going on. On top of that, this is a super full moon. what does a super full moon means? First of all, a full moon is when the sun and the moon are in opposition. So we've got the 27 degree of Aquarius to 27 degree of Leo. A super full moon occurs when the moon's orbit is very close to Earth. So you can kind of imagine kind of like a moon and Pluto conjunction. From an emotional point of view, this is a very intense period whenever we have got some super moons happening. And this is not something that happens every single day or every single lunations. So probably we've got about 4 to 6 super moon lunations a year. Now, I might be making two videos because, as I said, it's a very big one and it's very difficult to kind of mix the mundane as well as the personal influences. So let's see how it goes. I'm going to be giving you hints and tips here and there, of course, for both, but I might be making two videos about this because this is a huge one. So we've got the sun in the sign of Leo, and the Leo sun has got that pride. It's extremely proud. It is so focused and fixated about individuality. This is the king of the jungle. So often, when it comes to things such as taking an order, for example, from someone or being told something, they might not take it too well. However, yeah, the positive side of Leo is that I'm extremely generous, loving, and caring, especially when I care for you. Now we've got the opposite side to it, the Aquarius moon, which is also very much about individualism as well as something to do with your independence. It is trying to bring a team together. It is trying to build a community. It has got that sisterhood, brotherhood type of feeling. So what happens here with the full moon, which is always an opposition, so something is out of balance. It's kind of, I tend to call the oppositions as kind of like a yoga class. We need to be able to kind of do that yoga with both planets. And so we've got the clashes here of individuality versus the team spirit. And of course, in a way, we are invited to place ourselves in other people's shoes as well, to know what feeling it is to be not heard, to be understood, to be kind of like ignored in a way, because that's where the sun is not necessarily feeling too good when someone ignores them. Now, this full moon receives plenty of challenges. And one of them is a square to Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. It is the planet of chaos, rebellion. So what happens, and a moon represents the people in our charts, kind of like in a country's chart, for example. In our chart, this would represent our feelings. So we've got these chaotic feelings, kind of like we are up and down. Yes, Uranus could talk to us about a intuitive hit as well. All of a sudden, we have got this, yeah, intuitive hit. It is kind of like a little bit of an awakening. But from a mundane point of view, this would represent certain type of chaotic events that is going to be going down. Now look back to the sun. The sun is actually in a very tight conjunction to the retrograde Mercury. So basically, we have got an inferior conjunction happening between the Sun and Mercury, which happens every what? Probably about 90 to 110 days. So because this is a Mercury retrograde, it would talk to us about that my pride got hurt in the past as well, and then you are hurting it now again. And maybe I'm tired of being heard, so I'm gonna start speaking up because I'm getting tired of it. And there is that kind of like anxiousness to this whole combination, of course, with Uranus. Uranus is quite a mental planet. And often what happens is that Uranus wants us to liberate from the past, but unfortunately, Mercury is pretty much focusing on that because it's retrograde. So it's kind of like walking backwards in a way, revisiting the past continuously. It's kind of like you're trying to dig up certain type of dirt about someone so that you can kind of patch it on their nose. It's kind of like smell your own poo, because you made me smell mine. I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Why am I talking about 2 weeks ago? One of the reasons why I'm talking about 2 weeks ago is because the new moon, which went down in the sign of Leo, that was the start point of the Mercury retrograde. Now, the full moon is actually highlighting this Mercury retrograde. The other thing which we see that this lunation is pretty much ruled by Saturn. And therefore, the whole Jupiter-Saturn cycle is getting triggered here as well, of course. Now, when you think back about the Jupiter and Saturn cycle, that started in 2020 December. And one of the biggest events that happened straight after was, of course, Joe Biden got elected. I mean, Joe Biden got elected beforehand, but obviously the whole ceremony and inauguration went down just after the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction pretty much. And this took place on 0 degree of Aquarius, where Pluto is sitting at the moment. Now, this is the first square. And by the way, Jupiter and Saturn meets approximately every 4 years. But this is the first square happening between them two, which we call as the crisis in action. What it really means is that whatever happened back in 2020, December 2021, January, the seeds got planted there. And then now it kind of like there is a need to review it. So does it work? Does it not work? What do I believe in? What do I not believe in? Let's say, I don't know, I started a business, for example, in 2020, December, 2021, January. Does it really work? Does it meet up my expectations? Or somehow it gets tested? And then when you look at that, we've got this lunation on the 19th, but on the 19th of August, we have got Jupiter on 17 degree of Gemini, and then we've got Saturn on 17 degree of Pisces. So we've got the exact square happening on that day too. I mean, we've got the two giants are in a way clashing. Jupiter is, both of the planets are so connected to knowledge. Both of them are teacher archetype. Both of them are, one of them is the ex-king and the other one is the current king. And they have got this friction going on between them too. I mean, it's very interesting for me what is happening. But anyway, obviously on a personal level, you need to be looking at where these planets are falling, and I'm going to be making a description. And I also believe that I made one publicly available for everyone as well, in case you want to be listening to that. But in the world, this is testing somehow our belief system. This is testing, let's say, our religious and spiritual beliefs. This is about testing whether we are trying to expand our life. The good thing about Jupiter and Saturn, that Jupiter believes in something and Saturn is very result orientated. So the positive side of this is that, what we are taking action on taking something further. But it's a square, and often that indicates certain type of clash. And what it could indicate is that there is something that I believe in, but maybe we've got the lack of confidence with it. Or Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. So maybe we've got the dream, just we don't know how to crystallize it. But I believe in that. So somehow we need to bring the two a little bit closer to each other. And the square element is a call to act on something. Something needs to be done. So maybe with Saturn, which tells you to prioritize, don't have too many things on your to-do list. And it's trying to cool down Jupiter's, kind of like invincible energy. And where does the invincibility coming from? It also makes a conjunction to Mars. So Mars is pushing Jupiter to believe, to be dream big, to talk more in a way, because it's in the sign of Gemini. So we need to be able to make adjustments when it comes to our plan. We need the battle plan basically here. Now, of course, but we are here to talk about the Aquarius full moon, but it's impossible to talk about without the Saturn Jupiter square, because as I said, we've got three mutable squares, T-squares, but actually one of them is a ground cross. So I'm going to come on to that. Now, we've got this Aquarius full moon, and there is something to do with embracing our individuality. Do I feel free? Do I feel independent? Do I feel like I owe someone kind of like, you know, kind of like, am I getting pulled on a string, basically? This full moon is definitely an invitation to focus on ourselves and to focus on humanitarian causes. This is, in a way, telling us that there is no point in getting involved, getting into a crossfire, because we might get hurt even more. But also, what could happen is because Uranus is in the picture, you might feel in a way suffocated. You might feel that you are somehow locked up in a cage. You are in a prison. And of course, what happens is, and this is a natural defense mechanism, you are trying to break out of that jail. Obviously, especially when you feel that you are innocent. So what Jupiter and Mars does there is that, you know what, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be screaming like hell. Because, this is a fear combo for me. When we are afraid, we tend to be louder. And just look at the animal world as well, right? So what does the cat do? For example, when they are scared, they are going to be pushing up their back, right? The hair is standing up and so forth because they want to look taller. So that's exactly what Jupiter and Mars in the sign of Gemini do as well. I'm going to be screaming, I'm going to be shouting because I think they might hear me better. And maybe even covering up certain type of things as well with that, because we have got the tendency to think that when we are louder, then we are more believable as well at the same time. So there is this independency question. There is this getting stuck in a situation. There is that element of impatience coming with this. There is this, you know what, let's think big. Let's act big. And the problem with the Jupiter Mars is that we might not be able to see things in a way clearly. The reason why, because we are jumping into some situations without thinking. And you know what? Jupiter and Mars are close enough. Just look at the UK situation, what was going on right now. It ended up in riots and demonstrations because there were certain type of fake news, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, basically the whole country is kind of in a way, started burning down more and more. Because what Jupiter does, it spreads things. So with the Jupiter Mars, it's kind of like spreading the fire. In the sign of Gemini, it's very easy to spread rumor, spread gossip. So with this lunation, I think the Sun and Mercury retrograde is very much telling us to review the facts. Put your pride aside and maybe ask questions. Don't get too swayed away from, or don't get swayed. Yeah, don't get swayed by your feelings, because you might be having with the Uranus and Moon square, feelings that are way all over the place. But at the same time, Moon is, of course, opposing Mercury retrograde as well. So the Mercury retrograde, as I said, started with the new moon, but it gets emphasized with this full moon, because what does the full moon do? It highlights things. So it could feel like that your feelings are all over the place. People in the world are all over the place. They do not want to be controlled. So how am I going to be reacting to that? I'm gonna go on the streets. And that's the Uranian element there. I'm gonna turn the earth upside down. And with Uranus, this is unexpected. So and Taurus is a slower process. So in a way, to kind of slow that down, it's gonna take a little bit of a time, it looks to me. Because no one has expected that it would turn out that way, for example. On a personal level, this is also telling you just to try to calm down a little bit, because most likely you are going to be angry, you're going to have loads to say, the emotions are running extremely high during this time, and it's kind of like reacting with anger. And when you are reacting with anger, we tend to be making wrong choices, which might be attracting even more problems later on. So in a way, for me, this full moon is full on drama. Now, moving a step further, because as I said, I've got loads to say about this. Well, from a political point of view, all these are really triggering the US charts, because US has got moon on 27 degree of Aquarius as well. So I think something major riots, demonstrations, and so forth are going to be going down in the US. Also, it could be happening in the European Union as well. So I think these are some of the two kind of continents that are going to be affected quite significantly. People in these countries might become quite rebellious. There is an element of a social unrest, or in a way, fighting against social injustice. Now, look at that chart. I mean, Uranus is so very tight. Square is just what, like 4 seconds or 4 minutes away from that moon. So Uranus tends to be shaking things up. In a way, Uranus is about breakdown, breakthroughs, also breakup as well. So it has got that sometimes that destabilizing element. And because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, it could be shaking up the earth, for example. But on a personal, so therefore I'm talking about certain type of earthquakes. But on a personal level, this is definitely in a way where you want to take back the power into your own hand. Maybe with Uranus also, we get tired of pretending someone that we are not. Because obviously the Leo Aquarius axis is the axis of authenticity. And I'm getting tired of being pushed aside, or in a way, someone who treats me like a weirdo because I've got certain type of belief systems, and I'm tired of that, and I'm going to walk again out, and I'm going to be raising my voice about it. So somehow with the Uranus as well as Mercury, there is the need here to to discover the power of voice, the power of our pride as well, in a way, our mission, our uh, vocational call, our creative power. It wants us to think about that, you know what, we only have got one human life, at least that we remember. And I need to make it as special as possible. Um, so I'm seeing a lot of upset people happening with this. And also, we had, so Uranus is on the 27 degree of Taurus now, and obviously we had the Uranus and Mars conjunction that took place not that long ago on 26 degrees. So this full moon is actually highlighting the Uranus-Mars conjunction as well. What happened when we had the Uranus-Mars conjunction? Well, at that time, I predicted that there would be an assassination attempt against Trump. And unfortunately, it happened. I also predicted that Joe Biden would step down due to health issues. It did so. It did happen. So, am I making that prediction that there might be another assassination attempt happening against someone? Yes, I am making that prediction right now. I also made that prediction that there will be someone who might be trying to hack into a political system, for example, or something to do with banking. So I can imagine some major crisis situations in the bank industry due to internet problems. I can imagine that, for example, we are unable to reach our banking application for days due to certain type of glitches. Again, what happens? I get nervous. And then I run to the bank and there is going to be queues there. And then people are trying to get their money out. So this is another kind of scenario that I can imagine with this, unfortunately. Um, Whatever public event is happening, for example, in the US or Middle East or Europe, around the 19th, probably from the 14th till about the 23rd, I would say then that event is going to be extremely chaotic. Some unexpected stuff that is going to be going down, loads of surprises, and most likely these are not pleasant surprises. So do let me know if there are any kind of huge social events that might be going down. I know the Olympic Games are finishing on the 11th on top of my head, but I still believe that there might be some bits and bobs that happening at the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games as well. I wouldn't be shocked about it. So as we said, we've got this full moon, and then the dispositor of that traditional dispositor of that full moon is Saturn, which is making also an opposition to Venus as well. So Venus is in the sign of Virgo. What Venus wants here is that it's the love of details, in a way, the love of information. And then it gets somehow disregarded. It is told that, oh, it's not important. It feels like we are not respected. It feels like that no one wants to hear what we have got to say in a way. And oppositions are pretty much about clashes between two people. So I'm seeing a major argument happening between two politicians or even two countries. Somehow two people are throwing shit at each other, unfortunately, and it gets out of control. As I said, someone will be very loud. Maybe even someone is going to kind of prompt people to stand up against something. And people might listen to that. It also feels like to me that someone's integrity and self or integrity and worth is going to be questioned. So imagine that we've got this huge company, for example, and then someone's integrity, honesty, and worth are going to get questioned. So eventually that person steps down from their position, or even they get dismissed from their position as well. Or I can imagine situations where there is this huge public event that is going down, and then someone is not allowed to enter. So someone gets kicked out of a public event. Um, Yeah. Now, the other thing that I noticed, and we need to talk about that too. Now, you will see on 28 degree of Scorpio, the asteroid Lilith. And Lilith, I mean, I made several webinars about Lilith because I think it's extremely important point in our chart. But basically, she was Adam's first wife, and she kind of got tired of him. So she decided that she would be leaving Adam, and that would be the story behind her, pretty much, very briefly. And the gods did not necessarily look at it really well, so they took revenge on her and they killed all her child. Now, there are different Lilith in the chart. Okay, so we've got the asteroid Lilith, we've got the black moon Lilith, which is just a mathematical calculation, and so forth. We've got three, four types of Lilith. Some people consider four types, some only three. We're not going to get into that. But Lilith is definitely, on one hand, a demonic energy. It talks about lust. It talks about kind of like witchcraft in a way. This would talk to us about something where someone is extremely rebellious. This could talk to you about such things as movement as well, especially female feminine movements, because I don't want to be in a way, I don't want to be kind of in a way boxed in into a situation. By the way, the most used version of Lilith is actually the Black Moon Lilith, which is a more of a mathematically calculated point. And by the way, Black Moon Lilith is in the sign of Libra now. So, but I made a video about that. So in case you are curious about that, you might want to be listening back to that. So some of the keywords for Lilith is something to do with rebellion, something to do with the darker side of the psyche. This is someone who actually gets extremely angry at someone, and therefore they want to be somehow liberated, running away from something. These are some of the keywords, and I think this is also echoing the possibility that there will be certain type of demonstrations. By the way, its astrological number is 1181, in case you want to be looking up the asteroid Lilith, and it was discovered in 1927. And obviously, because I mean, Lilith is also the representation of certain type of rage. I don't want to be a subordinate to someone, and I want to be breaking out of that situation. And she wasn't afraid of this male society in a way. This is the reason why she was brave enough to exile the Garden of Eden. In a way, this is about resignation as well, because she resigned from that beauty and harmony. I mean, not necessarily harmony, but beauty that surrounded her. But sometimes in Lilith, we need to be able to learn to move past our rage and tap into our true power. She escaped the Eden because she wanted to discover something. She had her desires. And later on, she kind of in a way, regretted her decision, obviously, once her children got killed, but also she signed up for eternal revenge, that she was going to take revenge on men. So it has got um, lot of activism going on. So in a way, asteroid Lilith or any of the Lilith are activists. So again, this is just really telling me that some social unrest is going down. And at the same time, look at that asteroid Lilith. It's actually conjunct Pallas Athene. So we've got another warrior energy in the picture as well. And another interesting fact, when we had the Saturn Jupiter conjunction on 0 degree of Aquarius, we had Pallas Athene on 4 degree of Aquarius as well. So we had a conjunction between them two. This time around, this is in a Grand Cross, a fixed Grand Cross. So I cannot just forget the fact what was going down in 2020, 2021. I mean, we had all these political, social unrest, that it was rigged, and we had all these things thrown at each other, especially in the political world. Obviously, it was a shock as well to many that Joe Biden got elected. I think actually most astrologers believe that Trump would be winning. I was one of the ones who actually said that I think Joe Biden will win. It was very obvious for me through his chart, but I mean, this year is a big one from a electional point of view, surely. Now, when we look at the other T-square that is going down, right? So we've got the Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars combo. And what it's talking to me about is that obviously Jupiter, I spoke about that in the Jupiter Saturn video previously, but I feel like Jupiter is the stronger one here. Even though this is a detrimental Jupiter, but it has got directional strength, as well as this is still disposing Saturn. And this time around, Jupiter is still connected with Mercury as well at the same time, which is obviously the dispositor of Jupiter. So I feel like Jupiter has got the final say or in this T-square. But what happens is that we've got all these facts and information that might get distorted. And Venus would like to analyze these certain facts here, but maybe certain pieces of information are hidden. Now, the other very interesting fact about that Venus, that it conjuncts Orcus. Now, if you do not know what Orcus is, I made a video about Orcus before, so you might want to be listening to that. The astrological number of Orcus is 90482, and it has got a good 245-year orbit. So it's very similar to Pluto. And actually, Orcus is in a way very similar to Pluto, basically. Let's just put it that way. Orcus was also the god of underworld. He was the punisher of people who broke promises. And he kind of sent these souls down on a purification process. So Orcus represents the underworld, breaking promises. To a certain extent, it represents death as well. It is trying to rip away illusions from something. This is actually something to do with lies and betrayals also. Again, it just really indicates to me that there is going to be a huge lie that is going down, and people will be believing it. And this is causing certain type of social unrest. On a personal level, this is also telling us to find our own truth, to, in a way, looking at how blinded we are. Orcus house position, especially in your chart, shows where you have got a blind spot, where you might be in denial. Yeah, I think this is actually Oh, and then one other important thing about Orcus, that it's the counterpart of Pluto. So what it means is that Orcus is not only, it's basically the solution to your Plutonian problems. Often we want to be securing whatever is the Orcus position in our chart somehow. So therefore, Orcus can actually, because it's the asteroid of promise, it could talk to us about contracts and the breach of contract as well at the same time. Will be very interesting to see. Oh, and then Orcus has got another a very important meaning, and that would be the oath. In a way, it shows what we signed up to do. So what I'm kind of gathering here is that the talks that are going to be going down is kind of throwing facts at each other, that you promised that this was going to happen, and then the opposite happened, and so forth. And when we look at Pluto, which is, as I said, the counterpart of Orcus, Pluto in evolutionary astrology is said to be the sole purpose. So, in a way, Orcus is the representation of the reinvention of the self, the reinvention of your life. It's about understanding that everything gets destroyed once in our life, and there must be renewals. Happening to be able to move forward. But of course, when someone is kind of ripping away certain type of illusions from us, it can feel like a torture. So it does represent difficulties, of course. It does represent that there needs to be a change, a transformation, sometimes spiritual death within ourselves. And let's be frank, change is extremely hard. But when we are, and this is a fixed mutable cross. So the fixity indicates stubbornness. So when we are not changing, it becomes even more painful. You know, just an example. I mean, in 2000, we had an eclipse on Orcus, actually. Um, and research, by the way, shows whenever Orcus is on 0 degree of a sign, there is always basically war or financial crisis situation happening. So we had Orcus on 0 degree of Virgo in 2007 and 2010. When it was on 0 degree of Leo, it was between 78 to 80. So I think that was Vietnam story, right? Anyway, and then we had the 0 degree of Gemini, which was between 1930 to 1933. And we know what was going on around that time as well. And then we had the 0 degree of Aquarius, which happened 1915 to 1980, 18. So yeah, there is some type of truth to it. And I know this is in the middle of the sign now, because it is in conjunction with Venus, but somehow this is re-echoing the Saturn Jupiter square, which took place on 0 degree of Aquarius. Am I saying that there is going to be a war? No, I don't want to say that. There would be a war. But unfortunately, I do believe that there is going to be something going down. Another thing that you might see around Venus is actually a very tight conjunction to Astraea. Astraea is another asteroid. Its astrological number is 115, and this is talking about justice. This is also talking about purity. In case you don't know much about Astraea, she was the goddess of justice, and she was associated with the golden age of peace and prosperity. But she left Earth. She departed from Earth because she could not see, or she couldn't bear the thought that people became greedy, started killing animals, and so forth. So basically, her departure from Earth was the end of the golden age, and then we transitioned into a silver age, basically. And that showed certain type of declination of the humanity. So in a personal chart, it shows the area where we might be looking for certain type of justice, or we are striving for balance. It represents fairness as well. And also it shows vulnerability in our chart. So of course, this is now in the sign of, now some of the shadow side of Australia, by the way, that we can be a little bit on the martyr side. It's passive aggressive. I mean, just think she left Earth, obviously. Uh, she was extremely angry, but she didn't express her anger. So she just left, and she wanted a perfect world. There is that element of perfectionism going on with her as well. And it's in the sign of Virgo. That's also about perfectionism, the martyr complex, as well as the passive aggressive nature to it. So I find it also very interesting that Australia is playing a quite a significant role with that. Now, I did speak about Sun and Mercury retrograde conjunction, which, by the way, also has got Vesta right next to it. And Vesta is about focusing on something, focusing on our spiritual mission, focusing on something that matters, truly matters. And with Mercury there, we can be focusing on the past, and we can be focusing on certain type of words that are hurting our own ego. Now, this is a mutable energy. And the mutability is about flexibility, but also it comes with loads of changes as well. Sometimes it lasts for a day or two. It kind of like fluctuates like the moon, the mood. Now, Venus is there, right? Which is about our heart desire. So Venus is changing its heart somehow. Sometimes it's blaming one, and then all of it, it kind of promises something, and then it walks away from that promise. Again, I can imagine that a meeting should be going down, and the meeting is actually not happening, and I'm going against my own word. Or maybe with that Mercury retrograde, exactly this happened as well previously with someone else, and then I don't know, I threw some mud at them, and then I do exactly the same later on. So, but also with Venus, do I like this? Does this relationship make sense at all? Do I want to get involved? These could be certain type of questions that might be coming up. Now, that's the Venusian part. Obviously, on a personal level, the Venus-Saturn opposition is lovability. Am I loved? Am I worthy? We can have all these type of fears around not being accepted, in a way being judged as well, being judged and being criticized by others. Now, I've spoken about the Jupiter and Mars square already, but we also have got an asteroid there too, very tightly, and that is Phaeton. In our astrological number is 3200 in case you want to be looking up. And Phaeton was a son of a sea nymph, and its father was Helios. And the father was never at home. The father was always busy. Obviously, what he did was that he was carrying the chariot on the sky, basically carrying the sun from east, from one side to another. And Phaeton wanted kind of like playmates. And he had some playmates, but they refused to believe him that Helios was his father. So he kept nagging his father to allow him to, to pull the chariot, to be able to kind of show off to his friends. And Helios came around and then he tried to confirm, that he was the father, but Paeton wanted proof, or the friends wanted proof from him. So Helios said, you know what, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do to prove that I'm your father. This is when Paeton asked his father to drive the chariot of the sun for a day. And Helios agreed. Well, this became quite a disaster. Obviously, it needed tremendous amount of energy as well as skills. And he didn't have those skills, of course. So what happened is that basically there was this catastrophe, and Zeus, to avert the catastrophe, he hurled the thunderbolt and struck the chariot, and therefore Phaeton as well from the sky. So therefore, the sun died. So Phaeton in our chart could represent something like we think that we can handle a situation and actually we cannot. We are making a rash decision over something and we are ignorant towards the consequences. Or we want to be proving something badly that we might not be proving. And sometimes it comes with a lot of pride as well, because, and in a way, maybe that the fact that we are getting bullied as well, of course, like the story talked to you about. So the reason why the Jupiter and Mars is extremely loud, because they want to prove something. They want to prove their own, in a way, truth. And if it wasn't enough, look at Venus, which is the ruler of the South Node. It is actually being squared by the out of bound Ceres. And Ceres is about food industry, but also it's a nurturing energy as well. Ceres has been in the sign of Capricorn forever, because it went into the sign of Capricorn in February, and then it's remaining there till about November or early December due to its longer retrogression period. So Ceres could represent weather, as well as the mutable energies can represent weather as well. So this is talking to me about a major weather condition, extreme weather conditions that are going to be happening maybe in Europe or the US. But at the same time, this would also talk to me about, not serious, but the overall picture is that the neighborhood countries will be having certain type of major arguments, not agreeing with some type of political systems, and that could be causing kind of like a religious war. The religious war is very much about the Jupiter and Mars. Because I'm loud, I'm tired of talking eventually. So Mars says, but let's just attack. Enough of talking. It could talk to us about religious movements. It could talk to us about that we are not on the same page. We do not understand each other. We do not listen to each other. You don't listen to me. So I have told you several times. So I'm tired of it. Now I'm taking action. So the clashes of opinions seems to be extremely big in this chart for me as well. Of course, the higher manifestation would be that because we've got certain type of belief systems, let's fight together. So it could be a certain type of unification between countries as well, but surely it's against someone. Also, this could talk to us about, I think the shit show is gonna go down here. Maybe the situation in the Middle East is gonna get a lot more emphasized. But I'm gonna give you some historical facts as well in a second, and that might be able to bring us closer to the solution as well. Maybe it could talk to us about certain type of campaigns that are going down. and the campaign becomes nasty. And in that case, that Sun, Mercury, Vesta is actually telling us that we should be focusing on ourselves rather than focusing on others all the time. Now, obviously, Mars and Jupiter makes this very brave, bold statement, and then Saturn is kind of like the defense. But Pisces likes to retreat from, from all these. So it's kind of like one is kind of just talking, the other one is extremely quiet. And interesting that the silence is one of the way of communication, and usually that makes someone else to talk even more because silence makes others frustrated as well at the same time. Um, so as I said, one of the most important keywords here is that whatever we know, get to know, it might be fake. So just be very mindful about that. Also, this could talk to us about with Jupiter and Mars, which is about spreading enthusiasm as well and being highly motivated to achieve something. So on a personal level, this is great for business successes. Ground crosses often appear in very successful charts. But on a weather condition point of view, this could be talking about a wildfire, for example. It could actually talk to us about huge because the mutable energy or Uranus could talk to us about travel industries, especially airports and airplanes. So this could talk to us about huge chaos at airports as well. Even I can imagine an airport having to shut down, for example. But the Jupiter and Saturn cycle is very political. It is about legislation. It is about a system that is getting put in place. And we start questioning whether that system works for us or not. We need to be reviewing whatever we put in place. Does that do the job? Is it still, in a way, future forward? The other thing that we notice here, and you cannot see that on the chart, so you're going to have to believe me, but we had a Saturn Jupiter square happening back in 2016. And that was on 16 degree of Virgo to 16 degree of Sagittarius. So this square is actually bang on opposing that. So I looked up what was going on around that time. We had the Brazil and South Korea impeach their presidents. So are we expecting another impeachment? And my guess would be, some type of like maybe in something in France. I haven't looked at individual charts because that's a huge job. But currently the Olympic Games are causing significant problems. But anyway, it could be in Europe, for example. Then we had this coup in Turkey that failed. Now, if you do not know about these stories, you might want to be looking them up. I'm not going to be talking about them, but basically, it was kind of like a little bit of an attack against Erdogan in 2016 that failed, actually. It came out of nowhere. So it was a very Uranian event, actually. But Erdogan wasn't found where they believed he was meant to be. And then he appeared on national television asking people to step down. And then basically the police and the troops got back everything into order. The North Korea conducted missile and nuclear tests back in 2016. Are they going to use it now? Britain voted to leave the European Union. Now, I don't necessarily believe that someone is going to announce that they would leave. However, it's not impossible. I have been saying this for a while that another European country will be leaving. But you can see that the European Union is highly impacted here. Russia interfered in the US presidential election in 2016 as well. Basically, somehow they managed to hack into their system. So this is the reason why I would say that potentially there is going to be a major hacking problem this time around too. And Iran severed diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia. in 2016 also. That was due to an assassination, I believe. Can you see that these countries are the ones that are in play now as well, and they are always in the news? Korea and Britain and Russia and Iran. So for me, the history will somehow repeat itself. Okay, guys, so this is going to be, I think, enough for today. I'm promised that I will be making a full moon in Aquarius video more on the personal level. Okay, and that's going to be in the next couple of days. So this is a little bit more of a mundane overview of this. I hope it helps, and I hope I try to be as positive as possible with this, even though the energies of these charts are extremely challenging. So, guys, see you soon. Have a good one. Bye bye.